Exactly, what did Kitty do at the Long Branch Saloon?
You mean...
I never had understood that.
You didn't understand that?
No. I always thought she, I wondered about Kitty. What did she do for 19? What was her function?
You want to know with the basis?
Yeah.
She was a madam.
That's what I kind of suspected.
Just a saloon, folks,
Oh.
It was a
then that would be tiring after 19 years.
Amanda Blake kept a very real secret for nearly the entire run of Gunsmoke, and it was not the kind of secret you'd spot in a headline or a scandal sheet. While America watched Miss Kitty Russell run the room with confidence and quick wit, Blake was quietly doing something far more difficult, guarding her private life so completely that viewers could spend 20 years believing they truly knew her. On screen, Kitty felt open, fearless, and emotionally present, especially in the unspoken bond with Marshal Matt Dillon. Off-screen, Blake kept her relationships, her vulnerabilities, and later her health battles out of the spotlight, even as she became one of the most recognizable faces on television. That long stretch of privacy is part of what made her performance work, because the mystery stayed with the character and the woman playing her. Today, we're looking at what she kept quiet, why she guarded it for so long, and how it reshapes the way fans see Miss Kitty. The secret was privacy, not drama.
My career, as I had always known it, was kind of slipping through my fingers. I was just sloppily, overly sentimental about, the end of the show and the end of the trail and the whole thing.
Gunsmoke hit CBS in 1955, with James Arness as Matt Dillon, keeping order in Dodge City. But the show's real staying power came from the feeling that this was a functioning town, not just a weekly shootout. Miss Kitty provided the social pulse. The Long Branch wasn't simply a backdrop, it was where people talked, worried, traded information, and tried to feel normal in a place that could turn dangerous fast. Kitty also wasn't written as decoration. She ran her own business, spoke her mind, and held her ground among hardened men without needing to mimic them. That made her one of the earliest TV Western women who carried real authority, and it helped her bond with Dillon land as something mature and steady, even without a neat on-screen confession. Behind that ease was Amanda Blake's ability to keep her private life out of the frame. She played Kitty for 19 of the show's 20 seasons and appeared in more than 500 episodes. Yet, she rarely let the public see who she was once the day's work was done. That distance kept the performance clean. Kitty never felt like a celebrity in costume. She felt like a real person with roots in Dodge City. And that believability is a big reason she still stands out decades later. Before Dodge City, before Kitty.
And then the beautiful redhead, if we're in color you could tell better, lovely Amanda Blake, another redhead, Ann Robinson. These lovely assistants are going to grab the stars. There's some 250 here. I don't want to keep them waiting any longer.
Amanda Blake was born Beverly Louise Neill on February 20th, 1929 in Buffalo. She moved to California while she was young, and her early adulthood looked more like clocking in than chasing spotlights. For a time, she worked as a telephone operator, the sort of job that makes her later fame feel less like destiny and more like determination. She studied acting at Pomona College, and you can sense that training in how she plays moments that could have been throwaway lines. She had a way of listening that made scenes feel like conversations instead of performances. On a long-running series, that kind of quiet control is what keeps a character from turning into a cartoon. By the late 1940s and early 50s, she was working in Hollywood after signing with MGM. She appeared in films including Stars in My Crown and Cattletown, building experience the old-fashioned way, role by role. None of it screamed instant stardom, but it gave her camera time and professional rhythm. When Gunsmoke came along, that background showed. She made Miss Kitty Russell feel like someone who'd already been running the Long Branch for years. The humor landed, the tougher beats landed, and the switches between the two never felt forced. The writing sometimes had to tiptoe around what it could say about Kitty's past and her bond with Marshal Matt Dillon. Blake didn't need speeches to sell it. She let the audience pick it up in the pauses, the looks, and the way Kitty seemed to understand the room a second before everyone else did. The Kitty and Dillon effect.
You know, Kitty, it's really been good seeing you again. Maybe when all this is over and I get back...
I'll be here.
One of the most memorable parts of Gunsmoke is what it refuses to overstate. The relationship between Kitty and Dillon is a perfect example. It's not presented like a soap opera with constant declarations. Instead, it lives in the way they speak to each other, the way they trust each other, and the way they show up when the other person needs backup. Kitty is often described as fiercely independent, and that's true, but her independence isn't loud. It's steady. She runs her business and does not need permission to speak her mind. She can hold her own among rugged men, not by acting like a man, but by being smart, brave, and emotionally clear. That made her feel different from many female roles on television at the time. Dillon, meanwhile, is a lawman living with constant pressure, and Kitty's one of the few people who can speak to him without flattery or fear. Their dynamic works because it's built on loyalty, not ownership. Even when the show leaves things unconfirmed, the audience senses the deeper connection because Blake plays Kitty like someone who knows Dillon's strengths and weaknesses and respects him anyway. That bond became a slow-burning TV relationship that fans still talk about. It's iconic precisely because it stays restrained, and Blake's own off-screen privacy made that restraint easier to believe. She did not bring a noisy tabloid persona into the role. She brought a calm, controlled focus, which allowed the relationship to feel like something real people might actually live through. Kitty also helped the show feel like a town, not just a string of confrontations. The Long Branch Saloon became a place where information moved, emotions surfaced, and the public and private sides of Dodge City collided. Kitty's presence made those scenes work because she felt like a person who had built a life there, not a character dropped in to deliver a line and exit. Over time, that's what made her the heart of the series for many viewers. The Marshal might have been the official center of authority, but Kitty was the center of the town's social life. When you return to old episodes, you can feel how much of the show's texture depends on her. Awards, animals, and a second life after the show.
I don't need all these devices and things sticking in me.
Mrs. Wilson, could you tell us what happened?
Well, I must have eaten just a teeny bit more sugar than I needed to. And that's it.
That's it, ma'am?
Well, that's why I'm in the hospital. I mean, I had this condition, but I'm just fine now.
That's good, ma'am. But we wanted to know about your money. We understand from your son that it's gone.
It's my money. I can do what I want.
Blake's impact was recognized while the series was still a cultural force. In 1968, she was inducted into the Hall of Great Western Performers at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. It was a clear signal that Kitty was not just a supporting role. She was one of the defining performances in the Western genre on television. Off-screen, Blake was known for something that surprises new fans. She was a passionate animal advocate, and she sometimes brought her pet lion, Chemo, to the set. It sounds like a wild Hollywood detail, and it is, but it also points to a bigger truth. Her care for animals was not a casual interest. It became one of the most important parts of her life. After she left the series in 1974, she dedicated much of her time to animal welfare. She became a founding member of the Performing Animal Welfare Society, and she helped establish a wildlife sanctuary in Northern California. She also supported the Arizona Animal Welfare League, donating time, money, and resources in a way that helped it grow into the largest and oldest no-kill shelter in the state. This is another version of that long-running secret. Viewers saw Kitty's compassion on screen, but many did not realize how deeply Blake lived that compassion off-screen. The animal advocacy did not exist to decorate her image. It was a serious commitment that shaped how she spent her post-Gunsmoke years. Her health story also took a serious turn. A longtime smoker, she developed oral cancer in 1977 and recovered. After that, she became a spokesperson for the American Cancer Society. Again, she used her public profile for something practical, even if she kept much of her personal life away from the spotlight. The late chapter and the secret fans did not expect.
Next clip is with Dom DeLuise and is that Amanda? Oh my God, do you know how long it's been? Come here, lady. This is Amanda Blake, the lady I was in love with.
Blake married 5 times, beginning with Jack Shea in 1952. She later married Don Whitman in 54 and Jason Day in 64, with those marriages ending within a few years. Her 4th marriage to Frank Gilbert lasted from 1967 to 1982. Her final marriage was to Mark Spaeth in 1984, and he died the following year from an AIDS-related illness. In 1987, she returned to the screen to reprise Miss Kitty in Gunsmoke: Return to Dodge. For fans, it was a welcome reunion and a fitting goodbye. a chance to see Kitty again with familiar faces and familiar energy. It was also one of Blake's last performances, which gives that return a heavier meaning in hindsight. On August 16, 1989, Blake died at Mercy General Hospital in Sacramento at age 60. Her physician later confirmed the cause of death as complications from AIDS, and it was reported that she likely contracted HIV from Spaeth. At the time, the news shocked many fans, partly because public understanding of AIDS was still tangled with fear and stigma, and partly because Blake had kept her life so private for so long. So the most dramatic secret connected to her story was not something she played with for attention. It was something she lived with in an era when people did not always receive compassion. For generations, she remains one of television's most memorable figures. Miss Kitty was not just a part of Dodge City's scenery, she was its heart. And Amanda Blake's choice to keep her private struggles out of the spotlight makes that heart feel even more human. Now it's time to hear from you. When you think back on Gunsmoke, do you remember Miss Kitty for her toughness, her warmth, or that quiet sense she always knew more than everyone else? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.